Hey guys, welcome to everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
So we'll probably continue to have people that are going to come in for the next probably few minutes. I can see them coming in now, but we want to respect your time and start as quickly as we can. So I'm, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kate Taylor. I'm the chair of the Artist Network and also an abstract painter. So I will also be participating in the show. Angela is the director of our events. And so the two of us are going to kind of do the orientation for you. We do have a PowerPoint presentation. And so we'll be able to kind of run through most of the information, but we do want to make sure that it's really useful for you. This is obviously for you guys. So if there's questions that you have, if we're moving too quickly, things like that, please let us know. If you can put the questions in the chat, I will keep an eye on that. We find you'll probably, if you put your view on speaker view versus gallery, then that means when Angela does her presentation, then you'll be able to see the PowerPoint. And if you can keep yourselves on mute until we start, that would be great. And I see everybody has, so that's amazing. Okay, Ange, take it away.
Everybody. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you could make this meeting, but also I'm just so thankful and happy that we can actually have a live show. Yay! I thought it was done with orientations, but nope. So I'm really excited, and I'm glad that so many of you could participate at such a short timeline. Before we really get into it, I just wanted to introduce Cassidy and Mel, who just turned their screens off. They just turned their videos off. But Cassidy and Mel, if you want to just give everybody a wave, they're actually staff during the weekend, where we hired some additional staff on the weekend just with COVID protocols and everything that we have to do. And that we have very limited or really no volunteers. I just wanted to point that out. So those are familiar, they're going to become familiar faces to all of you on the course of the weekend. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
Angela?
Yeah?
I have like 4 or 5 volunteers to bring to the show.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I heard you, I saw your email.
Yeah.
And that's great, but it's not, I usually have 40 to 50 volunteers on the weekend, believe it or not. It might not seem like that. So for us, it's minimal volunteers, but we will have a few. I just want people to be
So
prepared.
just let me know if you need them or not.
Yeah, for sure. We'll use them. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds excellent.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
They're
Yeah,
excited to be there. So
yeah, they're excited. I just had to do a screening, a COVID screening with them. Like I'll send that through to you then, if you can share that with them. But thanks so much.
okay, great.
All right, I'm just gonna, Kate, when I have my screen open right now, can you see the bar at the very top?
Yep, welcome.
Okay. All right.
Welcome to that.
It partially covers my screen, so I just want to make sure. I don't know how to make it smaller, so I just hope that everybody's not seeing that. Okay, so just welcome everybody. Thanks so much. And it's the same thing. Remember, I couldn't forward last time. Oh, there we go. All right. So our agendas, we're actually going to do it in 2 parts. We're going to talk a little bit about site logistics first. That's really what the purpose of this call is. And then we're going to go through and talk about some of the things that we've talked about in other orientations. So if you've already been to some of the past orientations, you may want to log out for that. It's really just helpful for those who haven't seen or listened to some of our other orientations to do with like selling your work and your booth and so on. So I'm going to start off with the site logistics because we haven't talked about that at all in any of our orientations, but if you've watched some of the other ones, some of the back end stuff will be repeated. So if you want to log out after that point, you're welcome to. All right, so the key dates just to keep in mind, because we're in such a time crunch here, is really the all cargo order forms. If you are ordering forms, they're due on Friday. The optional tent load and grid loading, which we'll talk about shortly, but just from a timing perspective, you need to let me, that's on August 20th, and you need to send me an email for that as soon as possible so I can build up that schedule. And then of course, the Riverdale ArtWalk runs August 21st, 22nd, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So this is our site map. Can everybody see that? So this is our proposed site map. And it's quite different than previous years. So one of the COVID restrictions is that everybody will be required to wear masks and social distance, but not only that, we have to enclose the entire perimeter of the event space, which means what we did is, and we have to like really manage the flow of people. So we have to count people in and out, and we have to manage the flow. So it's actually going to go, if you can follow these arrows, that's sort of the flow of the event space. So hopefully that's self-explanatory there. So we have the park marked out to be about 80 to 90 artists. I'm just firming up with a few artists as we wait for our payments that are due today. I guess I should have put that on important deadlines, and contracts that are due on Friday as well. So once I have that, I'll be placing everybody and giving you booth numbers. So right now, if you are doing any orders or doing anything where you have to reference your booth number, unfortunately, I don't have that yet. And I probably won't have that until Friday morning. I'll be working on that on Thursday.
So if you're filling in your forms, then just kind of put TBC as the booth number.
Yeah, I always share with all cargos the entire map and all the list of all the artists and all their booth numbers. And what I'll also do in regards to the, I mean, I can talk about that when we talk about all cargos, but I also share that information ahead of time. And if there's any errors or whatever on the overall form with your booth number, you can highlight it at that point and reach out to Habib and his team. So the artist network, our booth will be a lot smaller on site as well. We want to keep the space for the artists and we want to spread out. So we're going to have a very small footprint. We'll just have like one booth. But it is still going to be your place to come to get your artist package. If you have any questions throughout the event, Barb should most often be in that booth, so you'll see a familiar face, and she can help you with anything you need. I'm also going to be in the show showcasing my own work, but you can find me at my booth. I don't know where that's going to be yet, but you can find me there, and I'll be here and I'll be wandering through the park. I'm not going to be in my booth all very much, but I will be in the park and around, so you can find me and I can answer any questions. For some of you who've been to our events year after year after year, we always have like welcome coffees and donuts and things like that. That won't be happening. We cannot share food, or we cannot provide food at this event this year. So just to confirm the other COVID protocols, we have to socially distance and encourage visitors to socially distance. Everybody has to wear masks. So people even coming into the event space are required to wear masks, even though I know it's an outdoor space, but that's what we're required to with our permit. You have to have 2 side walls open on your tent, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we encourage you to have hand sanitizer in your booth for high touch surfaces. So for example, I'll have pens in my booth or whatever. I wipe those off every once in a while. So we're just asking people to sanitize what they can and socially distance and wear a mask.
And we don't have to do contact tracing, right?
No, not that I have not been asked to do that. I think that Toronto's kind of given that up in this stage. I don't think we have to do it. So unless something happens, we don't have to do that. And if we do that, the artists won't have to do that. We'll be doing that on entrance at the event site. So load in and load out so load in, we have a partial load in on Friday night. So that's tents and grids only. So if you want to, a lot of people have smaller vehicles, or they live close, or they just want to have the comfort of knowing that their booth is set up and their grids are up. You can email me at angela@artistnetwork.ca, and I'll add you to the schedule. So I need an email because I need to schedule it, because we can't have like 50 people coming into the park when all cargos is setting up booths and we're potentially still working on some of the layout. So what we need to kind of organize approximately when you'd be coming in. So if you have a specific requirement, like, you know, I can come after 6 o'clock, or I can come after 7 o'clock, just let me know. I'm hoping to be out of the park by 8:30. So I'm hoping that you can come in between 6 and 8 o'clock to do that. That would be great.
Angela, quick question.
Yeah.
Do we need to be there if we're doing our grids and our tent through all cargo, or do we only have to be there on Friday night if you're doing your own tent and your own grids?
So no one has to be there Friday night. It's an optional thing. And you for sure don't have to be there. All cargos, if you're doing rentals with them, they pop up and put your booth in place. They won't put all the walls up. What they'll do is they'll drop off some of your walls the next morning, just because it's a lot of closing all the walls when they just have to all come down first thing in the morning anyway. And it also creates sometimes a bit of a wind barricade. So they might put up 3 walls. They might put So don't fret if your walls aren't all there until Saturday morning. But you do not have to load in anything. I will say one thing, don't come Friday night expecting with your own grids to put up your own grids and expect your booth to be there right when you show up, because All Cargos is following a schedule, their own schedule of how they can lay out the park efficiently, and they have minimal staff, and they're figuring that all out. So you have to be patient. I would say that if you're putting your own grids on something and you're renting a booth, a tent, I would say just do your grid Saturday morning.
One thing I just want to interrupt for one quick second here, just because, we've been working really, really hard to try and make this show happen in person, but we only very, very recently got approval for this show. So whereas we would normally have about 3 months of organization and planning for it, that's now been about 2.5 weeks. So we really, really need you guys to be super patient. Things are not going to be as flawless as they usually are, just because we've got so much to do in a compressed amount of time. So, and we also have the additional challenges of having fewer people be able to do things because of COVID protocol. So if your tent is not there, please ask nicely if it's going to be there, but we ask you really to keep your patience and your temper and kind of, sort of try and really work with everybody to kind of make sure we can kind of create a really great experience for everyone.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kate. And I think that even goes like for Saturday and even throughout the event, everybody's there to have a successful event, and everybody's just so happy to be able to get together. So I think we can all be patient with each other as well. What we will ask you, so what will happen if you're not familiar with the event, similar to all other years, you'll get a schedule, and you'll either, depending on where your booth is, you'll be asked to load in on Booth or Queen Street. And then depending on where your booth is, like you'll have an earlier timeline or a later timeline. We usually start loading at 8 o'clock, and we're usually done the load in schedule. So you have like 15-minute slot, 15 minutes approximately, slot to come in, unload your material, go back in your car, and then go park your car. So you can't leave your car on the curb and then bring your materials over to your booth space. What you need to do is drop them off curbside on the grass or whatever. Just drop them off in spots like a loadout spot or a drop-off spot, and then go back in your car and park. There'll be other artists waiting for those spots, obviously, to bring up their vehicles, because we only have along Booth and then part of Queen Street. At no time can you block any areas like TTC or the crosswalk or anything like that. They'll give you a ticket immediately. And tickets aren't cheap. They're $60 or $80, I think. So just consider that. We can't be eyes everywhere. So we really are asking you to respect that, to unload, then move your vehicle, then move your materials from the loadout spot into your booth area. And it might mean that you have to go bring your cart back to your car or something like that. But unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to have to be. So no vehicles are on the park property at any time. Don't know if there's any questions about that, but
no. It's just a quick question. On Friday, I would prefer to probably come Friday. Can we come earlier than 6 p.m. on Friday to set up?
I likely not. I have to work out the schedule with All Cargos, but if you can imagine a company coming in and popping up a lot of tents and grids and stuff, we have to give them first laneway and first right in order to get all their materials in. They're moving hundreds of pounds of material, and they're bringing in all the fencing and doing all of that. We need to get that stuff all set up first, and then we allow the artists to come in, because otherwise there's too many artists and there's too many vehicles around. It's just too chaotic. So the answer is likely no, you won't be able to come before 6 o'clock.
It also takes us about 4 hours to actually lay out the park and map it out too. So by the time you kind of back all that up, we just need a bit of time to make sure that everything's in place by the time you guys show up, so that when the artists show up on the Friday night, it's efficient.
Yeah, I have my own tent anyway. I'm not renting one. I have my own, so I have my complete setup. So
okay.
Yeah. So if you can't come Friday night, you'll just have to, you can pop me an email and ask me for an early load in time on the Saturday, and I'll try to get you in early. But yeah, you would probably just have to load in on, if you can't come Friday night to do your tent, then you'll just come in Saturday morning. We have to make sure that we have free movement in the park.
Yeah, I'll probably come. I'm going to be coming Friday night anyway.
Okay. We'll just send Angela an email. We also have some question about, is parking to unload is allowed? For how long? Basically what happens is you have a 15-minute window in order to be able to drive up to where you can literally take the stuff out of your car, put it on the grass, get back in your car, park your car, then come back and pick up your work that's on the grass and move it into the tent. So into the park. So
Yeah, so at no
fast
time
as
are you
possible.
actually, you're never ever leaving your vehicle area. If we see a vehicle with no person beside the vehicle unloading, you'll be tagged and marked for future events. Like it actually becomes a real headache and nightmare. So at no time are you actually parking your vehicle, you're unloading. That's all our permit we're allowed to do. So you can't park along the curbside.
Thank you.
So the parking, I just asked Barb if she could confirm this today. So some of the parking stuff has changed downtown, and especially with all the little cafes and stuff on the streets. So I just need to confirm all this parking stuff, but I will confirm parking options for you in an email.
There isn't a lot of parking. I'm trying to find even Leslieville area.
Okay.
There's not a lot, but I'll see what I can do.
But the schools, Barb, we sometimes park in the schools, right?
Those 2 schools should be fine.
Yeah.
We're closed, so I don't think there's any, just use them. But there's schools in Leslieville, but even those there's one school in Leslieville I was hoping would be good, but you can't park there, so.
Okay. I thought one of these schools had like a closed bar on their parking lot. So I just want to double check that.
Yeah.
I'm going downtown tomorrow, so I might do a drive-by, but yeah, usually people, you might have to walk a little way, like go to park your vehicle and go back to the site. But you can also potentially find street parking, right? There's often street parking you can find.
So what time, in terms of what is the best time to get there, you'll have a schedule. So you really need to come within the scheduled time. Please don't come early and please don't come late. Try and come within your 15-minute window.
Yeah. So
the other option potentially is if you are in a situation where you can have someone drop you off and then unload and everything and then take the car away. That's also a good one these days.
Yeah. So one of the things you can to also be aware with the whole drop off of your vehicle and the timeline, if you need a specific time, like if you need a lot of time to load in, just send me an email. I'll try to put you early on the schedule, but it's a 15-minute block. And if you're there too early, we might ask you to circle the block, right? Which is not a big deal. Like if there's a spot, you can come in, but if there's other artists waiting who have that schedule, we'll just ask you to circle.
There's a lot of questions about setup. So just to be clear, you may not come to the park before 6 o'clock on Friday. Don't ask, you can't do it. 6 o'clock is the earliest. You can set up your tent and you can set up your grids. You can't bring any art in, but that's it. And those will be, obviously, then you close up your tent and you go away overnight. And then the next morning, according to your schedule, is when you move in the art.
Yeah. So
for setup and on Saturday morning, I would bring like 4 volunteers to help. So do I email Angela for a time slot?
Angela will actually do a time slot for you and she'll send it out to you.
Okay.
Yeah, just send me another email, but I'll email you. I'm going to give you a time slot and we'll just
it would just make sense to have them all in there early so they can help with the setup and watch the,
Yeah, so 8
stuff.
o'clock. So if they can come at like 7:45, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so that would be me and the volunteers. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Thank you.
put you early.
That'd be
Okay,
excellent. Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So road closures, just double check the road closures. I don't know where everybody lives. Sometimes people come from way out of town and they're driving in, and also there's road closures and it mixes them all up. But there is a website, the Toronto road closures. There's a link and it usually posts everything where there's construction and all kinds of issues, or if there's a planned event somewhere, which doesn't really happen right now, but usually we do this when there's the Ride to Hope. So and the DVP
Is
is
there any
closed
way
for
you
one
can
morning.
pop that URL in the chat, Ange?
Yeah, so the URL is actually, everything's in the artist handbook. So this
Okay,
URL, it's all in the artist handbook. So if you're looking for that, just the artist handbook, you should just be bookmarking that at this point. All right, overnight storage has not been confirmed. Our normal pod supplier does not have them anymore. So we're looking for alternatives, but right now, plan on no overnight storage. So sometimes what we do is we have bins where you can leave your large pieces of artwork. I will inform you if that's the case, but right now, plan that that's not the case, and you need to plan on taking all your work out of your booths at the end of the day. We highly recommend you doing that. As you know, we don't take any responsibility for any lost or damaged items. And you really, we've had items stolen. I think only 1 year there is things stolen from somebody's tent, but you never know. And your artwork is precious, so you don't want to risk leaving it in your booth. Is my recommendation. Food and beverage, I said it when we started or whatever, that we can't serve food and beverage. We can't, and I don't want to have the challenges of bringing in food. Like we've had like catering companies come in and do lunch packs for people. This year, we're not doing that. So please plan and pack for the day with limited volunteers. Also, you won't be able to take those long artist breaks, or you won't be able to take as many artist breaks. I think I'm just going to ask you to please work with your neighbors, but plan and pack for the day. There are a lot of restaurants and great places to go and get food near the Riverdale ArtWalk. There's like coffee places, there's ice cream places, and there's places you can get drinks and beverages and things. But I would just say plan for the day, because there's nothing on site. Yeah, we won't be going around with apples and oranges this year.
Too bad.
So volunteers, yeah, so we have limited, so we have a few extra staff this year, and we have some volunteers, but again, it's a handful of people. We usually run this show, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 50 to 60 volunteers. So just keep that in mind. We don't really have the artist relief that we're familiar with, but we do have some. So we'll just have to work together to make sure everybody's covered. Maybe help your neighbors out if they need a hand.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the advantages of doing these outdoor shows, is really to build your own kind of relationships within the community. So you definitely, in all cases, should really get to know your neighbors, spot each other off, get to know a little bit more about their work, so that if they have to step out, then they can cover your tent for a bit.
So we have All Cargos as a sponsor, and Above Ground is sponsoring a few artist awards. I still have to confirm some of that with them, but we're hoping to have artist awards sponsored by Above Ground Arts again. So just remember that when you're shopping. So now we'll get into booth logistics. So we talked quite a bit about All Cargo already, but you should have all received the All Cargo form. If you can't find it, it's in the artist handbook. It's also should be in your confirmation email. If you got an email from me in the last week, I would have attached it just to make things a bit easier. Orders are due Friday. So if you have an issue with that, just reach out to All Cargos. All Cargos is a third-party event company, rental company. So I really can't help solve your issues when it comes to, like, you know, you want to order a specific thing and they don't have it on the list. One thing that we're not going to provide this year is, or they're not providing this year, is the really, really heavy waterproof tents. They're just going to provide the canopy tents. So one thing to remember is that they're not 100% waterproof, they're water resistant. So you want to make sure that you pack plastics and things like that, just in case it does, if it is calling for rain at all. Hopefully no rain, but just wanted to let you know that if you're familiar with the rental form, that some of the items aren't here this year. They have a smaller team as well.
So one of the things that I always do, and Angela may talk about it later, but because this is due in a few days, is I always rent my weights from All Cargo, because the weights are something that you have to have on your tents, but they're heavy. So I find that's kind of a really good use of someone else's muscle power to deliver the weights to my tent.
Yeah. So you can do that. You can just order weights from them. That's a good idea.
If you're ordering a tent from them, the weights are included.
Yes, that's right. All right, so this is the 10x10 pop-up canopy. And they also have grids, and I don't know, I actually forgot to look at the order form if they have the fence this year. I'm assuming they do, but they often have this 6x10 foot fence. A lot of newer artists who haven't done a booth before, they might order the fence, because then they can just have it wrapped around their booth. But again, this year we only have 2 walls, right? 2 walls to consider. So when you're considering and planning your booth, think about your fencing and your grids, or your like whatever you're using in your hanging system. We'll talk about that shortly. But
and just as a clarification, someone said, when Angela says she's not sure if the grids are going to be available, she's talking about the black grids that fit inside the frame of the tent. The tent frame is available, and that is available for watering.
Yeah, I just can't remember. Somebody can probably look, but on the order form, it's a fence. So this picture right here has a fence. Like those are actually fences. They're 6-foot fences.
The fences are available. I just ordered them today. They are
Oh,
available.
okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So that's great. So you can order fence, you can order grids, and you can order the booth and the weights.
What
And I
about
think
the,
tables and tablecloths and all those elements are available as well. Chairs.
I didn't see the director's chairs.
They are not
Yeah.
available this year.
Yeah, they're not available this year.
Ah, that sucks.
Yeah, they
Yes.
are available. They are available to pick up there for some reason. I think that David actually reached out to them and they said you could pick one up there. When I'm talking to Habib next, I'll ask him about it. But it might just be the trucks that they have or where they actually have those chairs versus other places. A lot of things have happened with COVID, and some of these companies have had to restructure a bit. They've done a lot more with fencing than they've ever done before. So they might have. It just might be where it is in their warehouse.
The other thing too is I actually went and bought a like a stand-up chair from IKEA. They're not very expensive. They collapse. They're pretty comfortable, and they're white, so they kind of look nice. So that's another option.
Oh, IKEA has them? That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, they've got
Thanks.
several
Yeah,
different
they're-
heights, but they're nice, and they actually have they don't sink into the ground too much, so that's good too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, can I
Yes.
ask something, Angela?
I beg your pardon? Yes, Louis?
Okay, my question is regarding the racks. Because in the previous picture, you show 10 by 8 rack. This is not the one that they are offering for us. They are offering 10 by 6, yeah?
Yeah, it is a 6 by 10 freestanding grid fence. So I don't know where you see 10 or 10 by 8. I don't see that. It's 6 feet tall and it's 10 feet wide. So it actually fits the entire width of a wall.
Yeah, but the height, I don't know if the height is going from the bottom to up or from the top of the wall down.
Oh, it sits on the ground. So it's 6 feet up from the ground. So basically it's 6 feet up. So you can see here, an artist here, that's her booth and that's the fence right there.
It's not this one. That is in the picture, it's not that one.
Kate, are you seeing right now the fence with, I
Yep.
think it's Mel in the
Because
picture?
I'm seeing the picture and the picture is showing the 10 by 8. Yeah.
No,
I don't think that's 10 by 8. I don't like if she's standing right in front of it. I don't think it's 8 feet. Her tent might be set lower. Regardless, it
Hey,
is
I'm
6
sorry, I'm on
foot
the
by 10
Zoom
feet.
call. Oh, no, everything's muted. It's okay. What a shit show.
Okay, sorry, I'll send you an email, but you can also ask them for pictures because on the bottom with the order forms, there's actually pictures on one of the sheets and it actually has pictures of the things that you can rent. But the picture that I have on my screen right now is actually a fence. And then this next picture here is the grids. So these are grids.
That one up left. Yeah.
So the grids, you can hang them vertically or horizontally, but these are black grids that are available.
I think those are 2 grids, one on top of the other too.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are 2.
The grids are only about 2 feet wide. I think the sizes are on the order form.
Can we just interrupt for 1 second? We're having a lot of questions. If we can go back about what the 2 open walls means. And I think for a lot of people, there's a question as to what you can rent. So the reason that you need to keep 2 walls open is so that people can walk safely through your tent and not be trapped in your tent. So we have some questions. You can't have 2 of your tent walls open and then have the grid wall on the 3rd wall because that does not allow flow through. You have to have art on 2 walls. That includes the inside and the outside, and and sort of a space at the on 2 walls that people can walk through.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Okay,
Won't
so
disagree with you, but that's what the clarification, that's what the requirement is.
Easy, holy cow.
yeah, so you can only have 2 complete walls on your booth, and it's for airflow and it's for like passage. So what we're recommending is like, so if you had like, if Nancy's on this booth here with Nancy here on the one side, if she had like an L shape, she could maybe put 2 by 8 foot like grid in the corner there and where her little table is. And I think that would still be like 2 walls open. Like that's how I'm reading and interpreting the city's guidelines, that like you could still put something and tuck something on that wall in that corner, or you could have like a free hanging piece of art, but there'd be no wall. Like someone could walk through and the air is flowing right through your booth. I know I had a lot of emails.
If you're going to hang, but if you're going to hang a piece of art on the back wall, you also have to have an area where people can walk through. So it would be like on the left side and people can walk through on the right side, sort of thing.
Yeah, Yeah, if you're gonna have your back wall open. So you can do an L shape, or you can do like just like two side walls. One thing to keep in mind that like people are like, oh my goodness, I have no area to display my artwork or whatever, but the booths are all gonna be 6 feet apart. So you will be able to hang on an outside wall, right? Now, some tents might end up having like a tree there, but when we're laying out the park, I'm going to do my best possible that you'd still actually be able to hang a piece of art there. Now, it's not necessarily a passageway where like people are going to walk, but you could say, oh, I've got another painting here on the outside of the wall, or like, oh, well, I've got another, you know, it's just another option for you to actually have work available in your booth that you can showcase to people, and they can easily walk or see when they're walking along the side, potentially see that side wall. Some people will have a back wall that faces Queen Street. We ask you, you know, use that wall, like showcase your work, right? People can see that even if there's a fence line across the back of the booth area, people can still see that, one from the street, but also hopefully we'll leave like at least a couple of feet that if you needed to go back there, you could pull that off the wall, bring it into your booth and show somebody. So there are options for hanging things. Again, some of the booths, if you remember, it's kind of like a circle. People won't be able to walk in behind your booth there, but there's 6 feet around your booth. You can easily walk around your booth and grab that painting and bring it in and show somebody. So as much as you only have 2 walls to really hang your artwork, I think you could cheat and put something in that corner if you did an L shape, or if you did an H shape, put something in the corner and extend it by putting a piece of art there hanging from the tent structure, and then putting a table underneath it. I did that at a show and it worked out fine for me. Like I was able to hang a piece of art in the corner. So I really still had like a third of that wall almost.
Yeah, and a couple of other people are suggesting using freestanding easels. And again, that is totally fine as long as the easels don't kind of cover the entire back of the booth so people can't get through. That brings up another point too. We really also do ask, in order to facilitate good flow for everybody, is that please don't put your easels in front of your tent or have stuff that goes into the aisles and blocks the aisle, because that then creates traffic flow issues.
Yeah, we're going to try to have wide aisles, but still, if you can imagine if your neighbor's beside you and they have stuff sticking out of their booth 3 or 4 or 5 feet, I've seen before, it actually, when people are walking by, it blocks their vision into the next booth, right? So we want to all be respectful of each other and be able to showcase your work to the best of your ability. So if this was Nancy's booth and she did an L here, on, let's say, where she's got the most work, the back booth and then the side wall, she could probably, where her little blue table is, she could probably take one of these paintings, hang it from the corner, right? Not have a wall there, not have a grid there, and then take this other painting and hang it on the outside of her wall. She's still displaying the same amount of work.
Yeah, and there's another question too about, can you have a table that clocks the back of your booth? You can, as long as it doesn't go the full width of the booth. Like, just think about the fact that people need to be able to walk in the booth in one way and out of the booth in a second way.
Yeah. So think of it as at least a passageway, but also flow through for air. So I get what they're saying is like, well, if I have if that's my open wind wall, can I just put a booth there? I just wouldn't put a 8-foot table there. You could easily put like a 3-foot table there.
Yeah. And can you hang artwork on the outside of your tent? Absolutely. We very strongly encourage you to do that.
I'm always surprised when people don't do that.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and so utilize the sides of your booth. Again, hopefully you won't have like people not be able to see the back of your booth or the side of your booth, one side of your booth. It's hard for me when I'm laying out the park because I won't necessarily know what wall you wanted to be left open, right? So it could be you planned your whole booth and the wall that you wanted left open, or you want to hang stuff on the outside is a tree. Then maybe you have to flip that wall or something, right? We do the best that we can. We're going to try to leave as much space between the booths as possible. We have less than half the amount of artists that we normally have in the show, which means if you've been at our shows, you know that means you're going to have a lot of extra space. We already have really wide aisles compared to a lot of shows. So we're using the same floor space for the show, just less booths. So now I just wanted to get into talking about planning your specific booth. Kate, do you want to take the space, or like what you do before you even get to the show?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would normally start to do, well, a month or 6 weeks before the show, which we haven't done, is actually plan your booth and plan your walls and what you want to have hang together. So partially this allows you to be a lot more efficient when you show up and you get there and you know what you've got. You're not bringing every single painting that you own and then trying to figure out on site where, if it fits and how it works. So I do mine in Excel, and I basically just structure it so that 1 square equals, I think, 6 inches. And so I can kind of literally place the actual paintings in my Excel document. So not only can I see that the work hangs together properly, I can also see that, oh, I'm missing a 36 by 36 inch painting. I need to paint one of those to kind of make the booth look like it's cohesive. It also is very helpful, I find, for when I'm packing my booth. Then I kind of know that I'm definitely packing the stuff that I absolutely need to have within the booth to make it work. I tend to put my big pieces on the top of when I'm packing my car so I can access them easily. But then I also don't have a lot of extra paintings and stuff that are not hangable. And this is going to be especially important this year because we're not going to have that sort of area where we can kind of hide the stuff behind your booth or kind of put a big table or something in one corner and pile your booth on there. You're really going to want to maximize your wall space as much as possible. So that's kind of the way I do it. A lot of other people will kind of literally do, I've seen people do actual maquettes or just even sketch what they want to do. I'm a visual person, as most of us are here. So I find that it's helpful for me to actually map out the booth. Quick question about electricity. There is no electricity. It's not an option. So we recommend that you bring one of those little chargers, like a battery charger that you can charge your phones with.
All right, so plan your booth configuration. Make sure that one of the most important things is make sure you have sufficient weight. People always think that they don't need as much weight as they do. What's required on tents is 3 pounds on each quarter. So make sure you have enough weight. Your tent has to be weighted. I've seen tents fly into Queen Street, and I've actually grabbed a tent with my hand like this, holding it up in the air from the wind before. So please make sure your tents are weighted. Plan for rain. Make sure that you take the materials that you need, plastic sheeting, plan for the worst, but hope for the best. That's what we always say. Make sure that you have a clear view when you're doing your booth so that people walking by can easily see and access content in your booth. So I would never put a big table structure across the front of your booth. You want to make sure it's easy for people to come in and they feel comfortable coming in. That is a thing with COVID. I think people stand back a little bit sometimes. So you want to make sure people are comfortable coming in. Tables and chairs, make sure that you only, I would only take 1 chair. Don't take too much. Don't block your work. Make sure you have your signage. So your artist signage, you can see in the picture here, Kate's booth, you can see her signage. She hangs it quite high, but you can actually see it really well when you're walking by the booth. I think this picture was taken high. And your artist statement, your COVID sign. So maybe take your, you don't really need COVID sign-in guidelines because this was maybe more for the tent tour. But what you might want to do is make sure that you have your book so that you can capture people's names. We all know that your newsletter list and your marketing list is gold. So I think some of this is a little bit repeated. Make sure you're ready for all weather. We talked about that.
So one of the things that is really important, and we kind of talk about this before with the pool noodles we'll talk about, but it's also good just to get a couple of really cheap drop sheets and just keep them with you. So plastic, so you can easily cover things if you need to, if the rain comes up quickly.
Yeah, those, they're, I think 10 by 12 feet. So I think they're actually a really awesome size because you can actually cover a whole wall really quickly if the rain comes up. Yeah. In regards to your signing book, I think this is a good suggestion someone had once. It's like, make sure that you put your name, email, and comment so that people actually put their name and their email on your guest book. Sometimes if you don't put that as a header, they often won't do that. And just as a reminder that the show goes on rain or shine, so you're expected to be there the entire show time.
One of the things I find with a guest book, which is kind of hilarious, because I always do the name, email, comments, headers. And for some reason, people still don't want to be the first one to sign. So I actually use a friend of mine. I always use my friend Yvette as a pretend person who signs up. And I make sure the writing is super clear. And I write a little comment like, oh, great art. And I find that actually helps to get people started to sign up on the mailing list. And because it's her name, I know that she's not a real person I need to add to my database. But I find that actually funnily, life psychology works to get people going.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Well, another thing that we recommend, it's not required for the show to have a white tent, but we recommend it. It showcases your work the best, I think. I've seen dark booths before, and it's a little bit more difficult to see the work. bring extra work for pieces that are sold. You can keep them in your vehicle or a small bin in your booth that like maybe is tucked underneath your table, or maybe just tucked in right behind your booth. If you have a back wall, you can tuck it in right behind your booth wall at the back. Packaging to protect your sales. So make sure you take your packaging, all these things you have to think about, not just like your work, but like what's going to happen with your work if someone buys it. Here are some examples of hanging systems. So I'm just going to scroll through these slides fairly quickly. It's just giving people some examples if they haven't done this in the past. But here's Morgan and David, and they have those black grids that you can rent, and they put them vertically. So the weight is actually sitting on the ground, which is great. I've actually seen them when people hang them vertically, or sorry, yeah, horizontally, that I've seen them, somebody hang a grid 3 in a row, and then they put all their heavy work or their glass work on it, and the whole thing came down and shattered. So don't do that.
Yeah, that's a bad way to start the day.
Make sure you, if you are hanging them, make sure that they're really tied tightly to the frame structure so that they aren't going to move. That's one example. Here's another example of that vertical format. So here's like, this one has 3. I wouldn't do 3 down here. I would just do 2 at max with the weight.
Yeah.
Just watch the weight. And this is what I was saying. See here, the photo on the right. If you rented a grid, like a thing like that, you could maybe put that on the corner wall that's like open, and you could still hang work on it. I would still say that's still an open wall.
Yeah, like I think I would be tempted, if you do an L shape, is to have like a 2-foot grid on both of those walls, so you can actually hang some art on the outside and maybe tuck your table on the inside or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Like my grids are 3 feet each. So if I have a walkthrough of 3 feet, like using 2 3-feet grids on the back, would that still be considered a walkthrough?
I feel like that might be pushing it, and maybe you'd be better with 1 grid on the back if your other 2 walls are solid.
I think, you know what, I think we're all going to have to use our own personal judgment. I'm going to police it that there has to be passage through the booths. But I think at the end of the day, if someone comes and asks, says something, you might be required to take it down. All right. Like, so I think that's the worst case. But so I think it's up to you, but it's a shame to take that all there and have an issue. I would probably side on the caution, side of caution. Like, I think already putting anything is extending it a bit from what they're really saying. It's kind of cheating it. So I would say maybe just 1 I would do, because 3 feet's pretty wide.
I think ultimately, you know, we actually pushed pretty hard to be able to get the permit to be able to do this show. And in doing that, you know, we obviously leveraged the relationships that especially Angela has with the people that are responsible here. So even if we potentially could really push the boundaries, it's really better off for the community for us not to, and to play within the rules of the game, so that, you know, next year when we're looking for permits and if we need any favors, then they're likely to do them for us.
Right.
That's why I don't want to push the limits. I'm just asking. That's the grid size I have built, and I just, you know, want to make sure no one gets in trouble and follow the rules.
Yeah, we appreciate
we're
that.
We're happy to be in person anyway. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
we're all happy just to be doing a show. So for the person who asked about the fences, these are the fences. So you can see they actually touch the ground, right? Like they go right down to the bottom. And then that's just how tall they are. They're only 6 feet tall. So that's the fence. It's fence, just different ways people hang their work, just some pictures of and some people have these white grids. And even though this person has them hung horizontally, she's actually got them touching the ground. So that's not a fence. Those are grids, more white grids. This is not a white grid. This is actually, I think fencing, like it's actually a, fencing or rebar or something, but just some ideas. This is the floor sheen wall. So these are awesome walls, I think. Are they chains? I can't even see. Big S hooks here on the top. So just different ways that people have hung stuff. But right here is on the left is it's a mesh wall. So if you have mesh walls, you're very fortunate, because it's an awesome way to hang. So I don't think you would at this point have time to order them. They come from the States, but just to keep that in mind, you'll see some in the park if you don't have them. Look at other people's hanging systems when you're at the show, walk around, and you'll learn a lot for your next show. Some people use like wood. David, Paul here, this is just like a 1x2 or 1x4 or something. And he just actually etches in like puts a notch in it, and he actually just hangs his work on that. So he just, I think he just puts, like, hooks it, like ties it up at the top, and it just rests on the ground, and he just hangs his pieces on them. So it's a very light thing to do. So people have all different kinds of creative ways to.
Yeah, we
hang their
have
work.
sort of another question. So basically, if you've got, in terms of how to hang your, if the grid is on the inside, how do you hang your wall on the outside? So first of all, you actually don't have to put the curtain walls up on your tent. So you could have a grid that hangs on your tent. You can hang on the front and the back. If you do want to have the white curtain wall and then your grid on the inside, on the outside, you can hang it by nails, or chains, or else you can use zip ties and just like loop them to the frame of your tent.
Yeah, so most people just hang on the grids, both sides, and they don't actually try to put a curtain between. That's what most people try to do. And if it rains or if it's too windy or something comes up, they end up just hiding that outside artwork, or they would have a plastic sheet that they can put on the outside, and then that covers the artwork to some extent to protect it. Most people are hanging the work. They're just like Paul, I know with his wood things, he just puts another piece of wood up the backside, and he just hooks a piece on it. Some people use chains. But here you can just see on this wood panel here that someone's etched in, and then they actually just take the wire and they hook it right in. Janet's done that. It looks great. Yeah, and here's another close-up of it where someone's just done a 2x2, I think, and they just put little etches in it, and they just hook their pieces in. This is just a metal hanging system that you buy in the hardware store, and this person's used that. She's put little hooks in there and hung her pieces.
One more quick question. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. So can I angle one side out into the open space? Your grid walls have to sit within your 10-foot by 10-foot space. That's the space you've rented, and that's where your grids need to sit. So you can't have them angling out to kind of interfere with the 6-foot space between the tents or into the alleyway or into the walkways. You have to stay within those parameters.
Yeah. So these are chains. Chains are just a little bit more fussy. I'll just say that. It's a cheap way to hang artwork, but it is a little fussy to sometimes get it straight and level. Other things people have used is just mesh. This is just like fencing material. It's very light. Felicity just rolls that out, zip ties it to the top of her fence, and it hangs her art on it. So it's a very light way to move and hang material. If you have 3D material, think about the fact that the ground might not be level, and that you'll have to take things to make sure that your tables are level. So if you're placing work on the table, just think about that the ground's not level. You're not on a flat surface.
Yes. It is a park, and they do make adjustments to that park. We've been there where the day before there was no tree, and they decided to plant some new trees the day before you're landing it out. So just keep in mind that the ground's not necessarily going to be even, and there might be, grass pits in front of your booth, and that's just unfortunately the way it is. We try and avoid them as much as possible.
Yeah, so lots of creative things to do. So someone asked about like sticking the grid out, but sometimes people put it inside their booth. You can see here on the left that someone's done like a little V-shaped thing inside their booth. I think Laurie Ryerson's done that before too. She'll do like a triangular thing and she'll put it in her booth. You can do that. I would say put it to the side, especially with COVID, but that's like totally a personal. These are just different creative ways to do your booth that people have
We
done.
also had the question about the signage too. So although there will be signs in your artist package, I'm assuming, Ange, that will have your artist permit and everything in it. Most artists, it's recommended to create your own sign so that you can have your own branding on it. And then that's something you kind of take with you at every show.
Yeah, the booth sign's a really small sign with your number on it and your name. It's a really small little sign. You should take your own branding. This is just one thing to close up of hanging artwork. One of the best ways to hang work is to just put a D-ring at the top of your work on both corners. It's going to hang the straightest. But so it's not necessarily hanging it for a purchaser to take away. You take those back out, but it's a way to hang it so that you're so it's much easier to hang on the at the show versus trying to fuss with wires or like hooks that are way like 2 or 3 inches down on your piece and trying to flip and trying to get them on hooks. If the D-ring sits on the top like that, it's very easy to hang inside your booth during the show.
Yeah. Tatiana, the name sign that we provide is like, it's on an 8.5 by 11, so it's small. If you want to produce one on your own, it can be any size you want. I think mine is about 6 inches by 48, so that it sits up inside the structure of my tent without kind of blocking the view. But you can have it whatever size you want.
Yeah, so there's mesh reusable ties as well. It's a very environmentally conscious thing to do. And then think about how you're going to hang your tags. Like, what are you going to actually like for your pricing or information about your booth or sorry, about the piece or about yourself? How are you going to hang that up? Do you have hooks for that? Some people use just like name tag hooks. Some people use pins, all different kinds of, some people just use like little sticky things and stick it to the outside of their piece. But there's all different ways to hang that, but just consider how you're going to do yours.
I would personally, just as my point of view, I would personally not recommend physically attaching a price tag or a sticker or something to your actual art. I think it just doesn't make it feel as precious. If you have, like I've seen that before, where people just like say, take the white stickers and hand draw the name on it, price, and literally stick it to the front of the painting or stick it to the back or the outside. And I just don't think it looks very professional. So just my thought.
Yeah, so here you see a shot of preparing for rain. These people have put noodles in the corner of their booth and they're a lifesaver in rain. So what the pool noodle does is it holds the top of your booth and your tent taut, so that if it does rain, the rain rolls off the tent instead of pooling, because they stretch. And as the rain pools and gathers in the top corners of the booth, it starts to drip and leak. So one of the ways to stop rain coming in your booth is to actually use that. So hula hoops or pool noodles work wonders.
And you want one for each corner.
Yeah,
so 4.
Yeah, at least 4. Some people put 6 in. Some people like here. Some people, I think on another picture, somebody like doubled them up. But I think it just depends on what shape your booth is in or your tent is in. The older the tent, sort of the more it sags.
I think I need about 12.
Yeah, we're not doing indoors this year. I don't know if this photo was still in here, but it's just we're not doing indoor booths. So now we're going to chat a little bit about the marketing and some of the things that we've done and some of the things you can do. Some of this might be repetitive for people who have been at some of our other orientations. I don't know if there's any other questions about the logistics or about loading in and loading out, or I mean, you can always send me an email and ask me a question. I'll do my best to answer as quick as I can.
So one of the questions here, but if your tent is H, you won't need noodles. I'm not sure what that means, but the noodles are to keep your roof up in case of rain. So I don't think there's any case where you wouldn't want to have noodles or hula hoops or something to keep your tent up.
Quick question about the move-in on Sunday morning. Would that be the same timing as it is on Saturday morning?
Yeah, that's right. So it's just a repeat. It's just you just repeat and use the same load in. And I forgot to talk about loadout. Actually, I didn't make a slide for that. But loadout, we don't actually have a schedule for loadout. As you can imagine, you can't really schedule that because some people take forever to pack up, and some people are super quick and also know, oh my goodness, they're gone. They're out of the park. So we never ever do that. It flows really well. All I can say is please be patient. And you can't park on those streets and like on the curb and at booths and stuff like that. If you like for loadout, I would say pack up your booth, move your material over to the curbside while volunteers and some staff on each street watching that stuff while you go get your car and then load in your car at the curbside, and then you leave. And this is going to be especially important if we have absolutely no overnight storage. Hopefully I can find some, but like we'll have to do that both days. So everybody will be loading all their artwork out on Saturday night. So it's important to think about that.
Angela.
Sorry, just another quick question. There will be a barrier around the entire exhibition area. I'm not sure it's going to be totally going to be fencing. It's probably going to be a combination of fencing and caution tape. But definitely we'll encourage people not to kind of go in and out in any other way other than the exit path that Angela showed you in the original map.
Yeah, but the artist, I think, Kate, what I'm going to do is I bought enough caution tape. I'm going to break the caution tape. So people, I mean, that's a really good point. I should have talked about that. How we're going to do the perimeter of the park is we're going to have like fencing, but then we'll have caution tape between different pieces of fencing. So what I'll ask, and I don't actually even have a problem, so never during the show should you ever break the caution tape because you want to get through to get a piece of art. You're going to have to go through the entrance and the exit, right? We don't want you doing that. It just encourages other people and guests to do that. Ducking underneath the lines and doing that, you need to walk in and out appropriately. But when you're loading in and loading out, we're going to break that tape on the corners, right? So you're going to break that tape and then I'll just have to retape it. So before the show starts or whatever, we'll be taping. That's one of the things that the staff and I are going to be doing is we're going to be going around. We're going to make sure the perimeter is taped off. Once it's taped off, we're asking you not to go through that, right? But if you have to go at the end of the day and you're loading out, Yes, you can, but maybe don't break it right in the middle and pull it and leave a mess. Maybe just like take it from the
Untie
one
it.
side.
Well, actually,
And put-
untying it would probably be good.
Yeah.
So we
If
can just retie
you
it.
can untie it, that means I don't have to waste and fill our garbage bags with plastic. So that's always awesome. But if you can just be a little bit respectful for that and not moving the grids and the wall, the fencing. Don't move the fencing. Just try to go through the caution tape areas.
Will there be a limited number of visitors allowed in at a time?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Our capacity is 5,000 people. So I think we're good. So invite lots of people, invite all your friends, please come.
No, but I've seen shows last year where they had tables and they were counting, they were tracking, and people were lining up for an hour or two to get in because there were limited numbers of people in the actual area.
Yeah.
Is that happening?
So we do have a capacity. Our capacity is very high. It's 5,000. As far as I know, I'm meeting with the park permit officer tomorrow. So unless he flags something for me, the reality is that I was very careful with my measurements and stuff like that. And our capacity is actually well over 5,000 for our square footage of our space, which means we won't have a problem. We do have to count. So we will be counting in people, and we will be, people have to kind of walk through the entrance area, make sure they're wearing a mask and make sure they social distance. So we will be counting and counting down. So it'd be great for us because hopefully we'll have some numbers this year on attendance, but I don't expect a problem. Like, I don't think there's really at Riverdale that we have 5,000 at one time in that park.
So the other question is how many people within the booth? Angela and I, well, and a number of us have done a number of pop-up shows and other shows during COVID. I personally find that people seem to self-regulate that themselves. So if there's already a family in the booth and it looks kind of crowded, they'll just step back and they'll wait until those people leave. So you shouldn't probably really have to monitor it. And I think that's going to be up to everybody individual. Sometimes you have a family of 6 that comes in. So I kind of feel like that's really one group. So that's fine. That's very different than 6 individuals.
Yeah, what I tend to do in my booth is as soon as there's more than 1 or 2 people that come in my booth, I pull out and I just talk to them from the outside edge of my booth. I'm like, I'm in the aisle and I'm chatting with them, and I'll say, oh, you know, and even if I see people kind of hanging outside of my booth, they're kind of like hanging out there. And because I'm in the middle of my booth, just happen to be doing something or like getting a drink of water or something, I actually like make sure like I come out of my booth and I say, oh, why don't you go in? I'm fine. Like, you know, I'll just hang out here. You can go in and take a look. It encourages people to get in. Sometimes you have to encourage people to take that step in your booth.
Yeah, I also find that's one of the advantages of having your back wall open because you can just step back. So like right out of your booth.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of your booth numbers, you know, I think as Angela said earlier, we're trying to kind of confirm final people. So you'll get your booth numbers as soon as we can get them, but it'll still be probably maybe end of this week, beginning of next week.
Can I ask a quick question about load-in time? I know we've kind of moved on from there, but the idea that Friday is a no-go is taking me by surprise. So will we be assigned times on Saturday morning?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, Friday. We never said Friday's a no-go. You can load in your table or your tent and your grids in on Friday night. We never load in art. We don't. We're not showing.
Well, I just learned now that we don't have the show on Friday, and so all of my marketing so far has been telling people to come on out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm going through all cargoes, so they'll put up my tent for me. But yeah, the load in, as I say, to keep. I'm assuming you're going to assign times. How does that happen?
Yeah. Like
it's usually based on where you're located in the park. If you happen to know that you need a particularly long time to hang your booth, then maybe shoot Ange a quick email.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's usually between 8 and 9:30. That's usually when the load-ins are. And I usually have
when will we expect, like, is Angela or who sends out, is it an email?
I do. I send out everything and I'll post everything in the artist handbook. So when it's created, I post it there and I'll send an email out letting you know that I posted it. But yeah, it'll take, you won't get that till early next week, probably.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I just wanted to just say, I'm sorry if there was confusion in regards to the whole Friday. The reason we decided not to move forward with the Friday, and we did that quite a while ago, not move forward with the Friday. I think right when we said we were going to do an in-person show, we weren't doing Friday already. The reason is because it was really going to be a night market with different kinds of activities and stuff, and we can't activate that in the park. Like we can't do a lot of stuff. It was going to go from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night, and we won't be able to activate that this year. So.
But it says our Facebook
Okay.
event says Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so we will go in and change
Oh,
that. So thank you.
Okay, so someone was updating that. I think it's a really old thing. So I think somebody was updating that and it just didn't get corrected then. And some people, they didn't refresh their browsers. So if you refresh your browser, it will also refresh. So, so if there's no other questions, we can move on.
I was just wondering about the so people are going to go through the back of your tent. Is that the idea?
Sorry, I can't. It's just really.
No, they're not necessarily going to go through the back of your tent. I think the goal is to allow them, for example, if you've got people that are in your space and a whole new group of people come in, that they can go through the back of your tent, or you can step out of the back of your tent to give people more space. So it's a bit organic. I'd say when we've done this before, it's been pretty organic, but people typically have been pretty careful and cautious about not overcrowding the tent. The biggest thing is that people have an escape route if they feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea of having 2 walls, 2 passageways, 2 walls open. And that's why the city's asking for that with events. It's so that people can move freer. I think that's really the purpose of it. And it's also for airflow and just to have a safer event. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't get the permit.
So the other question is, can I have somebody else, your son, your spouse, whatever, in the tent with you? That is not a problem in terms of the numbers that we're allowed with the 5,000. What it does do, though, is psychologically, it makes the booth a little bit crowded. So you do need to think about, my recommendation would be not to have a lot of people in the booth. I wouldn't put a table in the middle of the booth. I wouldn't do anything that kind of potentially restricts airflow. People are still quite anxious about going out in public, and we want to just try and make it as easy as possible for people to walk into your booth, see the art, and buy it.
Yeah, it's what I do. Like what you're going to find out is there's going to be lots of room between the booths, and like they'll be talking to your neighbors. You kind of hang out kind of just outside of your booth, like kind of at the entrance, but kind of on the side of your booth. That's what I do a lot at these shows. I don't actually sit in my booth. I kind of stand in my booth and I talk to my neighbor and I talk to people coming up, and I'll say, oh, hi, how are you doing? Or, welcome to come in and take a look. You're just trying to be, it's great to be out there and looking at art, right? So I think it's more about not being sitting in your booth. You're not behind a table talking to people. I think that's really.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yep.
How do you transport the canvases to the show? Like I know like it will be in a car or truck, whatever, but how do you actually cover them?
So I think there's different people do it in different ways. I have almost like a blanket envelope things that I transfer my work in. I know some people will put them in cardboard boxes, like thin, almost like mirror boxes. You can get them at storage units where you can put a number of paintings in a mirror box. It is much better to have them individually boxed, or not individually, like wrapped, versus having everything loose within your car. Just because by the time you get your tent in there and your car or your signage and stuff, things can move around. The other thing that I do, because I just got a new car, so I'd already figured out my old car, is try and figure out how you're actually going to pack the stuff and how you're going to make it work. You know that you're going to have to pull everything out of your car and put it on the grass before you go. But I always try and make sure that things like my tent and everything, my tent and my grids are on the bottom of everything, just so that if they do shift, they're not going to accidentally puncture anything.
Right. Yeah, and make sure you take something that if you're going to place everything on, that you kind of have that thought through, like how you're going to take stuff out of your booth as well, because you're not going to be running back and forth to your actual booth space when you're unloading your vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So and that's why we are a little bit different in a lot of shows. We try to offer that Friday night load in, so that you could just go there with your tent and your grids and all that stuff and get that stuff done, and then you're just taking your artwork the next day, and it's just much safer and cleaner, especially if you're in the area. It's not a bad idea.
So one of the things you do have to remember, though, if you do that, is that when you do load out on, say, Sunday, you're going to have everything, like all of your art and your tent and your grids. So just kind of plan accordingly.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things too that I just thought maybe we wanted to talk about a little bit. before the marketing, and it's actually about your space within your kind of your space within your tent. So, you know, we talked a little bit about not obstructing airflow, but also I think it's also about, we recommend that you don't sit in your tent. And if you're going to sit, we recommend you not having a low chair. You want to try and make it as, you know, as approachable as possible.
Yeah, I think we still have a couple slides like that coming up, Kate.
You do? Okay.
So, yeah, it's just that it was repeated because we've covered that in 2 orientations already. So
okay.
Anyway, I'll just run through this marketing really quickly. So our website is the riverdaleartwalk.ca. You should know that that's the main site for people to click to. That actually will go through to the Eventany site, but we're going to drive traffic to the Riverdale ArtWalk site. I actually put up a visitors page there now as well. It doesn't have as much as it used to have, but it's got some of the basic information about the show and some images and a link to the preview gallery. So the challenge with the, or not really a challenge, but the way that the Eventany system is once the event is live, people can access the artists and exhibitors. They can't actually access that until the show is live. And so that's why we created a gallery, a preview gallery of artists, and that's sitting on the Leslie Grove Gallery site. And it's just a preview of all different art and artists. So this is the Eventany site. That's what it looks like. And then you can scroll through. People can click down to the map. They can actually search different artists. Event listings, we've tried to post where we can event listings. We've had to change a lot of them. So whether the dates and the fact that we're in person has changed. So hopefully somebody went through and did a lot more announcements just this week. So hopefully we'll start seeing some of our stuff show up on some of the event listings, the free online listings. This is our marketing gallery that I was just talking about. That's what it looks like. Check if your profile's there. It's all manually done. I did it all manually, dragging people's images and stuff in there, so I could have missed somebody. So check and let me know if I've missed you. I'll be happy to populate it. We've created these postcards showcasing all the art. And what we've done is they actually promote both shows. So you'll see that we have the Art Walk in the Square as well posted. So we're trying to drive traffic to the in-person shows. We have these available for you to share as well. One of the things that we haven't really talked about is the fact that we've had to crunch all of our planning, and that also includes our marketing and promotion in a short period of time. And so we really need everybody to post, especially for this event, because it's been such a short timeline. We can't do some of our traditional ads like in the Globe and things like that. So there's just not enough timeline for it. So what we need is everybody to promote as much as they can through all their channels. So send multiple e-news out to your newsletters, pick up these postcards and distribute it to, like, even in your neighborhood. That's what I do. I pick up some of these cards and I just drop it in my neighbor's mailboxes, right? So these are available at the, I was going to send a post and I just didn't get around to it yet before our call. These just got distributed. So they're at the Leslie Grove Gallery right now, and they're also available at Carolyn Laylaw Arn's home. She's a little bit mid-Toronto, Kate, is that
North Lee side? Yeah,
the Lee side area. So there's 2 areas where you can pick up postcards. Carolyn has them on her porch, and so you can just take a package and you can pick those up. The Leslie Grove Gallery is open Tuesday to Sunday, 12 to 5 p.m. So you can pick up postcards then. And we're distributing, and so we're doing a mail drop of, Kate, do you remember the quantity?
35,000, I think.
Yeah, something like that. I think 35,000. So hopefully, so they should be hitting mailboxes. Maybe you'll see them in yours. I gave artists.
Sorry, the gallery is located at Queen Street East and Jones.
Yeah.
So Leslie Grove Gallery, it should be easy to find it.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to send an email. I'll send you an email with both addresses and the times that you can go and pick up those postcards. Or through Eventany, I'll send like a note. The I Gave Art program is just another opportunity for you to be showcased as an artist. It also helps us to develop and build our ongoing communication list for all of our shows and activities. So we have a pretty robust newsletter list now, and we continue to grow that at all of our events. And one of the ways we do that is by having draws, and people sign up for our newsletter. So we randomly pull winners. So you'll get a little extra promotion, and you'll get a sign in your booth that says I Gave Art. So it just really helps us promote the event. you'll be showcased on the website as well. There's a few different spots where your content will be populated, and I'm going to populate the I Gave Art stuff on the Eventney site as well. So consider that if you're, I think a lot of us have maybe a little bit extra artwork this year. so you can consider that. It's just a nice opportunity to give back to the community. Your contact list, like ours, is gold. So make sure that you communicate a number of times prior to the event start. During the event, even you can say, oh, one more day to the show. A lot of people even send out to their newsletters. You can prep that all ahead of time and just change and post images after. But your newsletter is an awesome opportunity for you to communicate to your audience. If we all send out to our audiences, they might not, my audience might buy from me this time, they might buy from Kate or Danielle or Andrea, and your audience might buy from me. So it's kind of like we're all growing our audiences together, right? Art lovers love to buy different art. So it's a really good opportunity to promote the show and yourself. So there's links. So if you go into the artist handbook, again, there's links to everything. You can copy and paste those links, those URLs. So there's a link to the Riverdale ArtWalk site. It's really easy to find, but there's the Eventney site link. And so you also have a link that goes directly to your profile on Eventney. So I would ask you to, when you're doing your promotion, link to the overall site. And then you can also link to yourself. So people can actually click on and they'll link right into your store on Eventney. But you also want to, one of the benefits of being part of a show like this is to really advertise and promote yourself as being part of a bigger thing, right? Like I always say, there's hundreds of artists and thousands of pieces of work to look at, right? Like if people don't want to buy mine, they can buy somebody else's work, obviously, right? But you're part of a bigger event, and that's really what we're trying to drive traffic to and promote. So, Kate, I don't know if you have anything to add there about the newsletters.
No, just really important. We know that through other shows we've done too. Certainly the postcards are a really great driver, but one of the best drivers are the artists' personal newsletters, because those are people that are already primed to buy and they're already interested and they love work, they love art. So,
right,
please do one.
Can I ask another question? So the online Eventry page is going to be the same time that it goes live the same time as the in-person show.
So that site, it goes live on Thursday. So it's going live on it goes live.
So do I post the paintings that I will have at the show? Like the in-person show?
Yeah, you can.
That's up to you. Yeah. So that's up to you. So the way that it works is that, we've had a couple of questions also. So if you've already set up your Eventney profile, we encourage you to go back and look at some of the other videos that we've done, but you can go in there and you can just update the existing profile. You can have completely different work there, or you can have the same work as you have in your booth. And then you just have to manage, if you sell something in your booth, then to be able to go onto Eventney and mark it sold, so you don't sell the same piece.
Okay.
So it's up to you.
Because I don't want to run into trouble having them online and then at the show. I mean, not that people will go crazy and buy them both sides, but it could happen.
Yep.
So it has. So I'm just going to flag that has happened at our event. So it
never know.
It is something to be aware of. But what you can do, if you actually have built that profile on Eventney, you can turn it off. You can just turn off the product. Okay. You don't have to delete it. You can just turn it off during the in-person show, and then turn it right back on. And then you can send an email later and say, oh, if you saw something you love but you didn't get a chance to get it, it's still available on my store. Like, it's another way to promote and share. So it's not bad to have the same stuff on there, but I'll go in and I'll turn mine off, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's different ways to do that. So if you look at the Eventney orientation, we went into detail on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there's some graphics, again, found in the artist handbook for the newsletter, for Facebook, and this is just a general newsletter one. It's like a size that we use for something else, so you can actually customize that and use it at the top of your newsletter if you wanted to. I don't know, I think I just got these a little bit out of order, sorry but this is just about the I Gave Art. So we did customized graphics for Instagram as well as Facebook. So just remember at Riverdale ArtWalk and hashtag Riverdale ArtWalk, and where possible, just always tag the video and in your text, follow at Artist Network. And then we're more likely to find you and repost. We're also asking you to follow all our other channels. So all our other, like at Leslie Grove Gallery, at ArtWalk in the Square, because even though those shows aren't happening right now, we're constantly promoting across different channels. So all those channels are listed, the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the YouTube, they're all listed in the Artist Handbook. If you can just go in and you can just follow all of them, that would be awesome. So here's some Instagram. Kate, do you want to just talk a little bit about best practices with Instagram?
Yeah, so, I think that obviously you want to be consistent with kind of your brand in terms of your grid. And so it's always good to obviously promote a piece of your art that's going to be in the show, as well as using the carousel, where you can also use the Instagram graphic that we've provided. Stories are probably the easiest ways to be able to sort of share. So if you do a story, please make sure you tag us. It makes it much easier for us to share the story within our properties as well. There's no guarantees that everything will be shared, because we also have to keep our accounts healthy. And if it looks like we're spamming, then we get kind of shut down. So we certainly don't want that while we're doing the show. We always recommend that you always have a current live story. And we also always recommend that you use at least 15 to 30 hashtags within your post. It's nice to have a bit of a mix up of your content. So obviously your art is going to be critical, because that's what people want to look at. We have certainly found that people are quite fascinated by the behind the scenes of, here's your car that's packed up, here's how you're packaging your work. And you can decide whether or not that goes into a story or the feed, but all those things help to generate kind of the excitement and the interest of the work. The other thing that's really good is to be able to leverage other people. So for example, I might kind of say, hey, I'm super excited to do this show with Armel and Helen and Angela and David, and I'll actually tag them as well. So that kind of starts to reach their audiences. It's easier for them to tag, and we kind of expand our network. So it's that classic, rising tide floats all boats. So the more people we can communicate to, the more people will come to the show, and it helps everybody.
Yeah, and also just pointing out that reels and things like that are getting a little bit more shares
attention,
or whatever. Yeah, they're getting a bit more attention. So that's something to consider as well, like videos and reels and things like that. Videos even in your stories. And
absolutely, like it's always good to sort of have your feed, your reel, your story. You can obviously save or post your Instagram images directly to your Facebook page too. It is also good to sort of post separate things on Facebook that you have on Instagram, because it's a different audience, and you tend to get better reach if you do that.
So the marketing package, I think I think there's a couple of people who signed up, and we can honor those. We'll honor those marketing packages, but we actually canceled the program just from a time perspective. We just didn't have the time to manage it, and there was less interest this time around than other times anyway. So the focus is really going to be on promoting the overall in-person event, all the artists online and in person, and the I Gave Art Draw. Facebook graphics, we already talked about that, and then other things you need to know about. There is a suggested packing list and show tips and how to be prepared in the Artist Handbook. It's a one from, I think, 2019, because that was last year. I had to.
It hasn't really changed.
So I actually haven't had time to read through it if I'd add to it or change it. But I mean, I think it's all good practice. So there is like some little tips and suggested packing lists, so you can access them in the Artist Handbook. Facebook network is also a really good source. So in the beginning, you would have been asked to join our Facebook group. So please take advantage of that. Artists are a really great source of information for each other. And so it's a great resource to like communicate and chat with each other, as well as if you're a member, there's a closed group there as well. So those are both closed groups.
Yeah, I think especially for some of the questions that are kind of specifically, what kind of packing material do you use? How do you package something that's been sold, all that kind of stuff. I think there's, the Facebook group is a very, very useful resource there.
Yeah, people ask suggestions about other shows. They ask suggestions about like where they got something. Tips for on-site, really, you want to just consider your support and comfort, right? So maybe think about having somebody come by to give you a break, friend or your neighboring artist. We have limited staff. We already talked about that, and some volunteers. Bring money for food and drink. There's restaurants in the areas, hat and sunblock, phone. Make sure you have your chargers. Make sure you do all of that the night before, that everything's charged and ready to go. Your all your payment systems. If you have a charger, that's charged and your phone's charged, and like everything's charged and ready to go. Make sure you pack lots of water, and consider rehydration pills. I think they were a lifesaver at one of our events. We had such high temperatures, and I actually went out and I gave people hydration pills and water. I can't this show, we won't be actually providing and like distributing anything like that. So make sure you consider all things for all weather.
And I'm assuming that the community center is open for washrooms and to refill your water bottle and stuff.
Yeah, so the washrooms are in the community center. I'm just confirming that they're going to stay, if they're going to kind of open a half hour before the event and stay a half an hour later than the event. I'll communicate that all through email, but I'm actually working with them, and they may actually be our source for overnight storage. I'm waiting for that. So we might be able to use the gym for that. It's not currently being used for programs. So anyway, we'll move along here. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about this, about your story and selling in your booth? I think we've talked about this for other orientations.
So we've gone through this a number of times, but for people that are new to the show, you know, this is, and especially with this one, this is an opportunity to really build the people that love your work and kind of build your community of people. And so one of the things that's really important to remember is in these shows, and I think especially this one, because it's going to be really the first outdoor show of the season in Toronto, where we've been closed down for a year and a half. So a lot of people that are out there, I think, are not necessarily, you know, they're not necessarily, they just want to go out, they want to look at art, they may not necessarily buy from you. But just because they don't buy from you doesn't mean you can't build that relationship. And so it's super important to add people to your database. We know that people buy from people they connect to, which is why these outdoor shows are so critically important. You build a relationship with them, they like you, they build this connection with you, and that connection is obviously a part of your work and as a part of you as an artist who's there. They go to outdoor shows because they want to talk to the artist, they want to meet the artist behind the work. So it's important that you kind of have a story that you can talk to them that is relatable for them. One of the other parts is a challenge is sometimes people want to kind of talk about techniques and they want to really get into, this is especially sometimes when you have artists coming to the show, and they want to kind of grill you on how you do everything. And so you kind of need to think about a courteous out for those kinds of people. So you can kind of go say, I'm happy to chat more later, you know, but right now I've got some people that want to kind of look at the show and I need to give my attention to everybody. So think about some of those things that in terms of how you want to have those conversations. Determine how you want to handle people who want to photograph your work. I personally am okay with people photographing my work, partially because even if they photograph it, I don't think they can do it, but it also really helps them to remember the pieces they like. Other people are absolutely not comfortable with them photographing your work. So it's important, if you don't want people to photograph it, I would suggest putting up a little bit of a sign. Some people will ask ahead of time, some people won't. So put up a little bit of a sign. How to handle people who criticize your work. For some reason, there's a group of people that just love to go into your booth and criticize your work and tell you have no talent. I don't know what it is with those people, but you know, obviously there are people that are probably never going to buy from you, but you still don't want to be rude. But I think there's a way of kind of dealing with it. One of the ways I personally deal with it, being an abstract painter, is I almost invariably have at least one person that will come in my booth and kind of go, oh, abstract, my 5-year-old can do that. And so what I do now is I just kind of say, oh, you must have a very talented 5-year-old. And I just walk away. So try and think of something like that. How to respond when people say, what are you trying to say with your work? And what are you trying to do? And keep it upbeat. So I know that sometimes it's hard when the weather might be not great. There's not a huge number of people. You haven't sold yet. But it's really important to be like Shirley Temple and be sparkly the entire show. It's your energy gets out there to the people that are walking past your tent, good energy and the bad energy. So it's really important to kind of stay upbeat. It's also really important to stay upbeat for the other people that are around you, the other artists that are in the show. So, and this comes down to, you know, do not pack your tent and start to pack your art before 6 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. First of all, as chair, that really pisses me off. I think it's really disrespectful to the rest of the artists that are there. Be attentive. Leave the book, the laptop, or whatever kind of in the bag and outside. if you're going to do a social media post, what I normally will do is I'll actually step out of the booth. I'll do my social media booth. I'll step back in the booth so that if someone are there, it doesn't look like they're going to have to interrupt you to ask a question. As Angela mentioned before, sometimes, especially people who haven't been to a lot of art shows before, are tentative about how to start the conversation. So it's great to be able to kind of just invite them in and kind of say, hey, come on in and take a look, or is there anything I can help you with? Or are there any questions you have? Just let me know. So it can help them start the conversation. I find that personally, most conversations start at a super basic level because that's kind of easier for them to start to talk about. But the other thing that's important too is also know when to step back and just let people enjoy the work without you kind of like on top of them all the time. If you have someone in your booth who keeps talking and someone else enters and you have, it's important. It's kind of like when you go into a store and you're trying to get someone's attention and they're dealing with one person, you feel like you're not getting the attention. It's the same sort of thing in your booth. So, certainly keep an eye open for other people that are there. And if someone is taking a lot of your space, it's totally okay to say, excuse me, I just need to say, hey, greet the other people that are in the space. So think about how you're going to do that. Share some interesting information. People I do resin. So typically people love to talk about the resin. Angela does encaustic. She probably goes through an encaustic shtick about 4,000 times a day because it's a nice, easy entry point for people to ask about. So each time you've got to keep that shtick super exciting and super interesting. And, just try and make it as personal as you can. For people like me, who is an extrovert who really likes to talk, also make sure you remember to stop talking. Let people that are quieter have a word in edgewise. All right, print material. I think this is, again, hopefully the stuff that you have printed 2 years ago is either still works, or if not, then you probably still have time with Vistaprint to get something reprinted. Obviously business cards are really critical. I like to do multiple business cards with different pieces of art on them. And I think it helps people to be able to remember you at the end of the day when they've picked up 90 business cards from all the artists that are in the show. I personally am a huge fan of postcards. I think you can add more content to them. You can talk a little bit about your commission policy or your artist statement, and it has a bit more impact. I absolutely find that people keep those. I've had people come back to shows years later and they've got one in their hand and they're like, I'm ready to buy now. So that's kind of important. As Angela mentioned before, update your artist statement. Make sure that it's easy to read and not too tiny. And your CV to include your latest shows if that's kind of what you want to do. Selling your work. So basically, be positive, engage with people, bring your best work. Like, don't kind of go, oh, you know what, I'm just going to bring my shitty stuff because it's an outdoor show. A lot of people who buy a lot of art, who are very sophisticated collectors, buy at these shows. A lot of art galleries will come by and they'll kind of take a look at the work and see how you engage with people and see what the connection is. So, really, your job when you're there is to be as approachable and share as much of your story with as many people as possible. And that's really what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and share what makes you interesting. I think Marjolaine did a really good job on this. I saw her booth up at Stouffville Art Show, and she had like a pretty big sign that said like basically what her work was. This collection, this collection of this, like what she's actually saying, or a little bit about her that's interesting about her. And I thought it was a really good idea. It was quite large. I haven't seen it that large before, and I thought, oh, yeah, like almost the space of a painting. But I think it's important, like Kate said, that people respond to people they connect with. And some of this isn't just about selling your work, it's about making connections for the future and to engage, to get feedback. Everybody has a different goal at a show. It's not always just sales. My goal still is a lot to build my network and to just get response back to people on my work and kind of feel it out. I mean, it's always great to sell something, but I think it's building your brand and building yourself as an artist, depending on where you are in your career. So just think about the different goals you have going into the show, and then make sure that you are providing opportunities so that you can reach those goals.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you're not sure that you can kind of do this spiel, you're nervous or you're more introverted or shy, then as Angela said, it's a great way to be able to kind of maybe do a bit of a card or something that kind of talks about your inspiration or talking points that can be on the booth. And that helps you as a visual cue of what to talk about. It also allows other people to kind of go, oh, I see you're, inspired by East Coast or whatever, like talk to me about that. So the other thing is it's really important to, your pricing needs to be consistent across the board. It should be the same online as it will be in the actual gallery. And it also should be the same if you have any galleries or any outdoor shows. So same price across the board. I always think it's really important to have work that's within every price point. You want some pieces that are smaller and impulse buy. Of course, everything has to be original fine art. I think you can have 15% that's not, but most of the work there is to be original art. But it's still good to have something that's a smaller price point that you can use there versus everything being really expensive. And I definitely move up, and I would normally put a larger piece in my booth for an investment piece. I think we've lost the presentation, but I'm sure I can babble on for however long. Yeah, think about whether or not tax is included in your price. You'll obviously know that you only can charge tax if you have an HST number. If you don't have a number, then you can't charge tax. If you make more than $30,000 in a calendar year, then you do have to charge tax. And that is of all of your consulting income. Do you offer discounts for multiple sales? These are all things that are really important to give some thought to ahead of time, so that when someone's there and interested in your work and they're like, oh my goodness, do you do multiple discounts? And you're kind of going, oh, I don't know, haven't thought about it. Do you accept credit cards? Of course, that's way easier now with Square and stuff. Do you accept checks? Do you deliver the work? Some people will come with cash. I've had people pay for $3,000 paintings with a wad of cash, which is kind of crazy, but people do. And so it's good to sort of be as prepared as possible. This is your storefront, so you want to look professional. Payment systems, obviously Square is probably the one that most people use. We do actually have the ability to process Square on your behalf if you do not have a Square account. We charge 5%, and that's really just to cover our admin costs that Square charges us. So if you do want to work with that, then you'll have to go to the tent, and Barb will process that for you. Other than that, you can really just go to Staples, buy Square payment systems. You can be up within about, 10 minutes. So it's super fast. After the show, this really feeds on what Angela was saying, that, part of the reason to do the show is, of course, it's great to sell work. It's great to build your network, but it's also really great to build contacts and relationships with the people that were there. So what I would do is, if someone is interested in a particular piece, I'll make a note beside their email address, and I will make sure I follow up with them and send them an email. It's important to follow up. I would think it's important to follow up until people say no, because sometimes people get really busy and you don't really want to leave a potential sale on the table. It's sometimes nice. People will often do a follow-up thank you newsletter to everybody, and they will include all the new names that they have in the show, and let them know what's coming up, what are the shows you're doing, reiterate maybe if you have a commission policy or if you have a contest going on or something like that. It's a good way to reconnect. It's also,
I was just going to say, one of the things that you can do is talk about the online show, because the online show continues beyond the opening weekend, right?
Excellent point.
So I think you do really want to think about the communications post the in-person event.
Yeah. And especially if the work is the same, then you can say, like if you've thought about it and you really want to see it in your living room, then, now you can kind of go online and buy it. It's also really important to evaluate, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like what went really well, and what are our best practices you're going to want to continue for the next show. What things didn't go so well, and sometimes that's you plan something and it didn't execute the way you were anticipating, and what can you do to kind of improve it the next time around. And I think that's always a really valuable exercise to go through. And it's always good to do that, I'd say, the day or so after the show. Don't wait too long, because otherwise you kind of forget stuff. Deliver your sold items. Thank those people. Obviously, you now have people that love your work, so that's someone you want to continue to nurture those relationships. And make sure you fill out our post-event survey, because that's how we continue to get better. Tips on encouraging people to join a mailing list. Yes. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. One of the best ways really is to offer something for free. So for example, if I'm going to do a show, then I'm going to say, hey, you can win this little painting if you join my mailing list. So the challenge with that is you get a lot of names, but you have to be mentally prepared for the fact that a lot of those people will now unsubscribe after the contest has been done, because they only signed on to your mailing list because they wanted to win something. I find that often it is helpful to have a bit of encouragement. So I will kind of say, let me know if you have any questions, or feel free to sign my mailing list if you'd like to stay in touch. And I find that phrase actually does encourage a lot of people to kind of go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And they sign my mailing list. So don't assume that people always see it and know what to do. Invite them to sign your mailing list.
Yeah, I find I always have to invite people to my mailing list.
Yeah.
I tend to,
I do
I
too.
tend to
And
run
the nice
a-
thing, well, the nice thing too, sometimes about not having tons of people, although it feels good if like, oh, I got 100 people on my mailing list, but if, you know, only 40 of those are really clients that you're going to kind of continue to have a conversation with, and that's the quality is much more important than quantity.
That's right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's all the slides I have. So if there's, maybe open up the floor for more questions. If there's more questions.
Yeah,
I'll
there's
end
one
this.
here. Can I offer to my visitors to participate in a contest to follow me on Instagram? Absolutely. Instagram contests are a really great idea. Wow, I just realized it's super dark in here. I feel like a mole. I think, you know, really the marketing, you can do anything that you want to do is definitely encouraged. So the gallery of small works, we're not doing the gallery wall, right?
No.
Yeah. So
I think
sometimes
it's
we
too,
got a
it's
couple-
too much high touch points and stuff. We're not doing the overall
Yeah.
gallery anymore. We are doing the I gave art draw, and we'll post those in our booth, but we're not going to do the gallery wall.
Yeah. So a couple of people have talked about that, and those are the 12 by 12s that we encourage people to bring in.
Yeah, Kate, I have a question regarding the point of sale. I use the Square system, and I have the card reader and the small magnetic strip card reader.
Yep.
Even though this is going to be an outdoor show, we don't have access to the internet to you know, to do all our sales on Square. So with people using Square, and I had a couple of problems with this a couple of shows ago, like in 2019 when I was doing 2 outdoor shows. They didn't have any connectivity with Square so that the payments would go through. So how do
Yeah,
you,
so I think you really have to use data for that.
what's that?
Like you have to use your data. You have to use your data plan really for Square so that you know for sure it goes through and gets processed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll
The other thing,
No, in other words, you're just adding more data for, let's say, the weekend
on your phone, yeah.
on the phone.
yeah, depending on what your data plan is, you potentially may have to do that.
Right.
But yeah, you'll have to use your data if you're using a Square reader, right? I mean, that's what some people don't do it, right? Some people use the Artist Network, but most people have their own readers and have a data plan that is sufficient for that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And-
The other thing I find is that it's becoming more and more common, people doing e-transfer. So I've had people which will actually do an e-transfer directly to you as they're sitting in your booth. So that's
Yeah,
another
I've done
option.
that a lot, and then you don't have to
Yeah.
pay any fees.
Okay, well,
Exactly.
yeah, you know, like, yeah, but I had a couple of problems with a couple outdoor shows. Like the
It might
first
be your service provider, different service providers. You're gonna have better, I don't know if it was your data plan, but it's also maybe your service provider. I have never had, I'm on Bell. I've never had a problem in the park. Kate, you're on Rogers and you've never
I'm on
had a problem in
Rogers.
the park.
But the other thing too that sometimes creates issues is actually not your service provider, but it's the fact that maybe your Square app needs to be updated. Sometimes it's things like that too. So
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's a
mentioned
really
that
good
before.
point, not just making sure everything's highly charged, like fully charged. You want to make sure your apps are all up to date,
Oh, yeah.
including your Instagram, if you're posting from the site, all that stuff. You want to make sure you've updated all your apps before you go to the event.
Right, yeah, because my first big show my first big show was the Cottage Life Show, the Spring Cottage Life Show in 2019. And a lot of us artists in the trade, in the trading post area, the big connection hall, were using Square devices or other things. And there was so much individual traffic, internet traffic throughout the whole building. All the participants, all the people in the show, that a lot of your Square would cut out. You couldn't even.
Yeah,
well,
so-
we've certainly experienced that at the One of a Kind. But first of all, it's an
Yeah.
outdoor park with 100 artists. It's highly unlikely that the
Okay.
networks are going to be so crowded and swamped that you're not going to be able to process your charge.
Yeah, okay, so.
And indoors is always different. It's always different
Yeah.
indoors than it is outdoors
Yeah.
for those things. Those convention centers, internet can always be spotty. You always sometimes have
Well,
problems.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah, I know. We've experienced that too.
Do you have
Yeah.
any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just one more. With the Artist Network, the support they're going to have their point of sale. What was that again? Can you just briefly describe?
That's also Square, and we take 5% of the charge, and when it clears our account, then we will send you a check.
Oh, okay. All right. So if somebody purchases a piece of artwork from me, I would come.
You walk with them to the Artist Network tent.
Right, and then they would just run it through their system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tatiana, did you have a question or are you saying goodbye?
Hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, it's very soft.
Thank you. Can I sell through Eventany's online because I have a setup account for online sales through Eventany. So if somebody wants to buy a painting online and pick it up on a show, or the other way around, if they see a painting in a show and just buy it through Eventany,
yeah,
an option. So, thank you. On that note, then do I need to now re-enter my work for this August online show, or is my work always there?
So the way that Eventany works, like we, again, if you haven't watched the other orientations, I asked you to do that, and there's lots of help documents as well. But the way that the Eventany works is you have one profile and you have one store, right? And so what you're going to do is you're going to link that to one event at a time. And when it's linked to that event, it showcases an event, then you can turn it off, but then you can turn it back on for another event. So you don't have to redo your profile and redo everything. You want to probably get rid of the product that you sold and upload a new product. But it's definitely one profile that you'll relink to that new event. I don't know if that answers your question, but I can walk through some of that detail with you if you need to on some of the Eventany stuff. If you want to send me an email, we can chat, or give me a phone call. The one thing I don't think we emphasize this time around at all, and maybe we should for the group of people here, is that this is a fine art show. So definitely at the show, there's no functional work. So what that means is there's no pillows, there's no leggings, there's no curtains. It's all fine art. And so it's in your contract as well. You can sell like cards, and a very, very small percentage of your booth can be displayed with, so for photographers, images that are prints that aren't numbered. And as for artists, maybe prints, or like painters, maybe prints or something like that. Like note cards. Some people sell note cards. We know everybody's trying to make money, but you can't sell mugs. You can't sell functional work.
Angela, can we sell paintings on paper?
Yep.
Frame?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
As long as they're original. Like what we
Yeah,
really
of
want
course.
is we differentiate this show because people come here for original art.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Ruth, did you have a question?
I did, yeah. Just on the front, at the beginning of the presentation, you had two forms. One was the all cargoes one, but there was another one, and I just didn't pick up on what that was.
I think it was still the all cargo. Do we maybe have the all cargo form
I don't think there's another form. The only other form that I have right now online for people is if they want to sign up for the I Gave Art. You can, I don't even think I talked about that tonight. I talked about the I Gave Art, but there's in the artist handbook, it's in there, and you can just fill out a form if you want to donate art. And that's a form. You can upload an image that we can use for marketing purposes so that we can promote it and promote you as the artist. So I encourage you to do that. I think it's a good opportunity to get additional marketing, but I don't think I have another form. I'm trying to think
I don't think so.
be.
The one thing I would say is I know that we've thrown a lot of information at you today. So please read all of Angela's emails fully through and look at the artist handbook. There's a lot of information there. And that really should cover almost everything you need to know.
Okay, and is the form for the submit art, is that in the artist handbook as well?
Yeah, and I would have, Ruth, I would have sent that. It would be attached to the email. I think I should have attached it to your email. I mean, there's sometimes I've dropped it off of an email, things happen, but I try to attach it to everybody's email. Like I know you were fairly recent addition to the group. So I hope that I attached it to your email, but just send me a note.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm
Angela,
almost caught up to my email.
Angela, I think the two, it's Carolyn, I think the two things that you sent out were the all cargoes and the artist contract.
Oh, the contract. Yeah.
One other thing I just want to say about the I Gave Art, because I do think that it's a really great way to kind of promote your work. is, what I've often done with the I Give Art is I will donate maybe a small painting. And then I put a little card at the back that kind of says, you can either win this painting or you can use the value of this painting towards a larger piece if you want. And so it's kind of sometimes a nice way of being able to, again, engage in your audience and potentially, if they're interested in something larger, then it's a way of kind of facilitating that sale too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, unfortunately I was unable to get to the to the event tonight on time. Was it recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will there be a link somewhere to?
Yeah.
No,
So-
David, we're just going to record it, but keep it secretly to ourselves.
Well, saying that, it did take us a long time to distribute the last orientation. So we just had a problem with the last recording. So there should be no problem with this. And within a couple of days, it should be up in the artist handbook. And again, I will try to send a note to everybody in the probably, hopefully it'll be there when I have your map and your booth numbers in like a day or 2 days.
Okay.
And I should be able to distribute it at that time, but I'll put it definitely, just check into the artist handbook because it's the first place where I'm going to post it. Right. I'm going to.
And the YouTube channel also has a lot of the past orientations, which have a lot of the marketing information, which is helpful. There's also stuff there on how to, I think, Ange, you put a link to the interview that you and I did too, right? On how to prepare for an outdoor show.
I couldn't put that link in the YouTube channel because it was an Instagram live that we did it's on your account. But
it's on my YouTube, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so okay. So I have to figure out how to do that. But it is listed in the artist handbook. It's like questions or whatever, how to do some things or whatever. And there's a whole list and there's links to everything in there.
Okay, I guess I was just concerned about the unloading timetable, things like that.
Yeah, so David, you've been in our show many times. It's going to be similar. So we're going to do like the Friday night. So it's a 2-day show. It's really clear on that. So Friday night is an optional load in with your tent and your grids. I think you've taken advantage of that in the past. And then Saturday morning, we'll be loading in from 8 till like 9:30. You'll have a loading time. And if you need a specific time because of something, just reach out to me. If you need more time or whatever. We don't have a lot. I just want to flag that we don't have a lot of volunteers, David. So we're just going to try to manage as best we can. We've got extra staff and we've got a few volunteers that are going to be there in the morning and we're going to be able to watch your stuff. So you've been there before. It's very similar system, but the map is quite different. So I populated an image of the map also in the artist handbook. If somebody wants to take a look at that, it's in the artist handbook as well. I am meeting with the city tomorrow to do a final confirmation on that. So it could change, but that's just where we are right now.
Okay, no, that's great. Booth numbers coming out in a couple of days.
Booth numbers are coming out. Payments are due tomorrow, Wednesday. And then contracts are due on Friday. I'm hoping that if people aren't going to be participating, they've already emailed me. So until I just don't want to do the map 3 times. So I'm waiting until payments are due and in, and then I'll be able to know exactly how many people are going to be in the show, and then I'll be distributing booth numbers. So probably you'll get it Friday. Because I'll probably be doing it Thursday.
Just one more thing. I just wanted to thank you, Angela and Kate, for all your work on getting this done and your quick responses to emails. It's very much appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thanks.
Great stuff.
Well, thanks for everybody's patience.
Yeah, sometimes there's delays in that, but we try.
No, I know you do, and I understand that, and you always come through. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, awesome.
Hey, it's Andrea one more time.
Yeah.
Again, I wanted to follow up on this. Amazing. Thank you so much for all you do. This is so hard for you guys in this situation. Angela, do you want me to email you? Because I would really love to bring those high school volunteers in on setup days, Saturday morning.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Do you want me to send you their emails or do you want to go through me? It doesn't matter to me.
Did you send me 2 people's names already?
I sent you 2 already, but I have 2 more.
Okay, so if you send me the other 2 emails, then I'll copy you on the email and I'll follow up with those 4 people.
Okay.
It's just, I've had to focus so much on like permitty stuff
Yeah.
that I haven't gotten to that yet. But there is, I downloaded a requirement, like it's a self for any staff or volunteers that I have to go through in regards to COVID. It's just yeah, basically they have to fill that in.
Sure.
And give that to me. They can just bring it that morning, I think.
I
So I just
just
have
wanna
to,
make sure-
I have to read protocol and then I'll send out something.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if I bring like 4 kids in the morning, I want to make sure that they're used, that they
We will,
need
for
it.
sure.
Oh, we will
Yeah, we'll use them
absolutely
at-
use them.
We'll use them at loading because that's
And not be
Saturday
sent
morning.
away because
I have
they're
a
excited to
question,
get some
Kate
high
or
school volunteer
Angela.
hours.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you have
I'll
another
tell you,
question?
Angela.
I have a question, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have to interact with the all cargo guys at any time?
No, you don't have to.
Oh.
They'll set up your booth for you. You said you ordered a tent
Not
from
yet,
them, right?
not yet, but I'm just wondering if we have to interact with them, receive and hanging the stuff. at the
Angela,
store.
if you send your forms in on time, Angela does does kind of a bulk list up to all cargo, and then they kind of manage everything. So you shouldn't have to manage
No,
any of that stuff yourself.
You don't, so they don't hang up your grids. I just want to be really, really clear.
I
If
know.
you're ordering the fence, they'll put the fence up where you tell them where you want it in your booth. They'll put the fence up on the right walls, right? Like, oh, I want these 2 walls, or I want just this wall.
Mhm.
They'll do that. They pop up your booth, but they don't hang up the black grids. They have no idea what your situation is. They're not going to
Okay.
stand there and
Oh,
take
yeah, I
direction from you.
understand that, sure.
Oh, okay, all right. I just want to make sure. And they don't give you the zip ties to hang that stuff up also.
I know.
So, okay, all right. I just want to
Thank
make
you very
sure. Yeah, so you don't have to, your booth should be there ready for you. If there's an issue, yes, you're gonna have to interact with them and give them a call. If you have an issue, you can come to me and I can try to help. I
Okay.
just, but they are a third-party vendor, so
Okay,
you're filling the
thank-
form in and your
thank you
contracts
much.
with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Angela, sorry, I have another question. Since this is my first show, I'm not sure how to hang anything. So in terms of the grids, I don't know if this is a question for you or for them, but if we hang the grids, what do we hang them with? Do they give us anything to hang it?
No, so you're gonna want either chains if your work's super, super heavy, but honestly, I would go to Home Depot and I would get different kinds of zip ties. Get long zip ties to hang your signs on and things, and then get like small zip ties. And that's for your booth number 2. It's going to be a laminated sheet of paper. And if you want to hang up your booth number, you need a zip tie or something to hang that up with. I'll have a few like a little bit extra when people get stuck in the booth, but I don't have enough for all the artists. So go to Home Depot and zip ties are your friend. That's all I'll say.
Okay, and even if your paintings are heavy, because most of my paintings are like 15 pounds, because I have like a resin and things like that.
So then you're going to use S hook. You're probably, if they're wired, or you use D rings on the top of your painting, you can use like these little metal S hooks. I think we covered, Nick, if you take a look at some of our other orientations as well, we get into a lot more detail about booths. So, but I'm happy to talk about that now. But you can use, they have like little metal S hooks, and you kind of can hook that on the grid, and then you can hook your wires on it or your D rings on it. So most people have a lot of S hooks. Like I have, I think over 100 S hooks in my little bag.
Buy a lot of S hooks.
Okay,
S hooks and zip ties are your friends.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much.
And then
chain. Yeah, and I would just say, Nick, it's those kind of questions too. The orientation videos will share that stuff, but it's so it's really sort of valuable to put that into the Facebook group. And there's so many people that have either answered those questions before and provide lots of options.
Yeah, you can say, oh, where's the best place? Where do you get your S hooks? Like, is Home Depot the right place? I live here. Where do you buy your supplies? And Home Depot is a great source also for packing materials. We didn't get into detail about that, but like, let's say you're someone did talk about how to pack your artwork, and I think Kate kind of answered that in regards to packing in the car and stuff. But think about how you have to pack it for your guests as well. You can pack in paper and you can have bags, but you can also, like Home Depot's got this padded kind of foamy kind of flooring that you put under hardwood flooring. You can buy that in rolls, and you can make envelopes with like painter's tape or like duct tape on the edges, and you can slide your paintings in that. So I know a lot of people do that. Like they buy these materials that are like home materials, and you can use them to make packing materials or do things like that. So Home Depot is a good source for all those types, or like a hardware store is a good source.
There's also, I'm just trying to think, the place that we get our bags, is that Creative Bags, Ange?
Yeah, but the last time I didn't buy my bags there. I can't remember where I bought them. I bought
No,
paper bags.
but
I
there are
bought
a
my
lot of,
bags
yeah,
at
but there are a lot of
Uline.
options.
I bought
Yeah.
my bags at Uline because I don't use a lot of plastic. So I do paper. So I bought a lot of stuff at Uline, I think.
Yeah, moving supply stores are also good to purchase, packing material like shrink wrap. Oh, not shrink wrap, the bubble wrap.
Yeah.
The foam wrap, you can get them in all sorts of different size rolls, relatively inexpensively. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good stuff to wrap up your artwork after a show.
For sure.
Sure. Yep.
And one of the things to think about, especially if you're doing stuff like bubble wrap to wrap your art, just think about what you're going to do with that after you've got your art in your tent and everything looks really cool. And now you've got like a huge amount of bubble wrap. So you do need to just think about what are you going to do with that? Where are you going to store it? How are you going to make sure it doesn't blow away or, take up, 4 feet in the corner of your booth?
Yeah, that's why I was saying you might want to have, like, I have a wood box that I use that doesn't look bad. So then I could tuck that underneath my table or whatever. And it's just like aesthetically, it's sort of pleasing. And I put my extra packing stuff in there, my bags and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, you can buy at Home Depot, which I use are the moving boxes that move flat screen TVs. They come in 2 pieces. And if you have artwork that's framed or canvases, you can put actually, depending how thick those pieces are, 1.5 inches or whatever of canvas, you can put maybe 2 or 3 in one individual box and carry it away with it.
Yeah.
With my work, the framework that I have in one box, actually 6 to 7 pieces in one box.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Steve. And it brings up another point too. One of the things that I do is because, depending on where you are, you don't necessarily know where your tent is going to be within the park. So one of the things I do is I bring a wagon. So I'll kind of like set my wagon up, put all my art in my wagon or my tent or whatever, and I can just wheel it to my tent space. It just, it helps you having to physically carry everything. Because to Stephen's point, those boxes are great for carrying 6 pieces of art, but they're probably kind of heavy. Yeah. So a dolly or a wagon or something like that will really help make it a lot easier for you.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have dollies on site at this event. There's not dollies and there's not dolly rentals. So think about how you're going to take your work from that one space to your booth. And if it's heavy, like some people, even tents and grids, they get very heavy. So a lot of people have carts.
Or strong sons.
Yeah, you can buy the collapsible carts. I think I've seen them at Lee Valley. I've seen them also at Canadian Tire. Not sure about Home Depot. But the larger cart that you can get, the better.
Yeah, just make sure it'll fit in your car. Because the other thing too is you can't put the cart on top of your art.
Of course not.
So that's what you have to think a little bit about how you're going to pack your car. My stuff I put in a very modular way, so I know that a 36 by 60 will fit beside a 12 by 60, like stuff like that. And you'll start to get to know that. But it would be helpful to start to think about how you're going to do that.
Right.
So the only other question I see here in the chat is there a COVID screening for us to complete? We're not required to do that. It's an outdoor space. You're required to wear a mask, and guests are required to wear a mask. So they're not asking us that we have to do a COVID screening. As from everything I've read, I don't need to do that. I don't need to send you guys a form.
Okay.
But if that changes, I will be letting you know.
Is there any other questions?
Yes.
Oh my God, I've got a huge thunderstorm just coming through.
Sorry, yeah.
Really loud.
Sorry. One thing was that I missed, of course, on all of it, but do we need a sign-in sheet for a COVID sign-on sheet?
No, you don't need to do that. So there's a one entrance point and exit point to the event space, David, and we're not actually required. Yeah. We're not required even to do that. So
okay.
As far as I know, I'm not required to do that. So unless something changes. Oh, it looks like there's one new message down below. Oh, good night.
Okay, thank you.
Another quick question. Sorry, do we need to wear the masks? It's an outdoor event.
Yeah.
Yep.
All artists are required to wear masks and all guests are required to wear masks. I know it seems odd because it's outdoors and we're not required to wear masks outdoors, but at this event, you're required to wear a mask. It's
no problem
it's a permit requirement.
So you might want to bring multiple masks because if it's hot and sweaty, I always like to bring multiple shoes and multiple masks.
Yeah, that's true. Multiple shoes is a game changer at an event.
Multiple
and multiple wine.